1944 Episode 1 is coming. And this time, it's not about surviving the wild frontier or building an empire. It's about keeping it alive during the darkest chapter in history. The war has reached the Dutton Ranch, and the ghosts of 1923 still haunt its walls. A son who never knew his mother, a father scarred by loss, and a legacy that could crumble under the weight of blood and betrayal. Taylor Sheridan isn't just continuing a saga, he's rewriting it. Because in 1944, every Dutton must choose what they're willing to die for. The story of Yellowstone 1944 picks up more than 2 decades after the heartbreaking end of 1923. The world has changed, but pain, power, and loyalty still rule the Dutton family. The year is 1944. The air is thick with fear and uncertainty. The world is at war, and even the peace of Montana feels fragile. Spencer Dutton, once the fearless adventurer who fought lions in Africa and demons in his own heart, is now an older man, hardened, quiet, and haunted. He's lived with the weight of losing Alexandra for years, the kind of loss that doesn't fade, only buries itself deeper. But fate isn't done with him, because at the start of this new chapter, the Dutton Ranch will be tested like never before. John Dutton II, the child born from tragedy, has grown into a young man. He's strong, restless, and full of that signature Dutton stubbornness, but deep inside he carries the pain of a mother he never met, and a father too broken to truly love again. His relationship with Spencer is complicated. There's admiration, yes, but also distance. Spencer still sees Alexandra's eyes every time he looks at his son, and that memory burns him. It's the kind of pain that no man can outrun, no matter how many years pass or how much land he owns. And when rumors of war come knocking at the Dutton gate, John feels the pull to do something greater than ranch life. He wants to fight, to serve, to prove himself, even if it means leaving behind the only home he's ever known. But 1944 isn't just about one family caught in history. It's about what happens when the Dutton legacy collides with a world tearing itself apart. The ranch, once a symbol of power and endurance, now stands vulnerable. Resources are thin, men are being drafted, and fear spreads faster than wildfire. For the first time, Yellowstone's biggest threat isn't cattle thieves or rival families, it's the uncertainty of war itself. And Taylor Sheridan seems ready to show us that even the Duttons can't control fate forever. Meanwhile, whispers begin to circle around Montana. Elizabeth, Jack Dutton's widow, returns after years away. Her presence alone stirs old wounds and awakens buried emotions. She's no longer the fragile young woman we once knew. She's older, wiser, and she's not returning alone. By her side is a grown boy, her son, who believes he has a claim to the Dutton legacy. His arrival reignites a fire that's been dormant for years, sparking rivalry and suspicion among the Dutton men. And when Spencer learns of her return, everything changes. Because Elizabeth isn't just a memory of the past, she's a reminder of the life Spencer lost, and the one he could have had. It's here that 1944 Episode 1 begins to weave its emotional trap. You can almost feel the tension rising on the ranch. 2 young men, both Duttons by blood, staring across the land they believe belongs to them. John Dutton II, the soldier-to-be, shaped by loss and ready to prove his worth. And Elizabeth's son, born of another branch of the same family, believing he's been denied his birthright. Spencer, torn between protecting his son and doing what's right, becomes the reluctant peacekeeper in a war that's not fought on distant battlefields, but right on his own soil. And just when it seems like Yellowstone might finally break apart, something unexpected happens. Spencer begins to see visions, fleeting, haunting glimpses of Alexandra. Maybe it's grief, maybe it's guilt, or maybe, just maybe, it's something beyond this world. Taylor Sheridan has already hinted that Alexandra's story isn't entirely finished, and fans are already speculating whether her spirit will return to guide Spencer or warn him of what's coming. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain. 1944 isn't just another Yellowstone story. It's the bridge between the pain of the past and the violence of what's to come. And with World War II raging beyond the horizon, the Duttons will soon learn that the cost of survival has never been higher. As John Dutton II prepares to leave for battle, Spencer must decide whether to let his son go or to fight to keep him home, knowing that the Dutton bloodline may depend on it. Because in 1944, every choice carries a consequence. And on this land, the ghosts never stay buried. The second chapter of Yellowstone 1944 begins with the storm that no one can escape: war. Across the world, battles rage, but for the Duttons, the real fight begins at home. The government starts calling on Montana's strongest men to serve, and John Dutton II finds his name among them. Spencer stands on the porch of the Yellowstone ranch, reading the letter that could take his son away. His hands tremble. His eyes, once fierce and unyielding, are tired now. He's seen death before, but the thought of losing his son to a war he doesn't believe in shatters him. The man who once fought to survive lions and bullets now finds himself fighting the one thing he can't control: destiny. But Spencer knows the Duttons don't run. They never have. And when John II tells his father he's leaving to serve, Spencer doesn't stop him. He simply nods, because that's what Dutton men do. They face hell head-on, even when it tears their family apart. The silence between father and son is deafening. There's love there, buried deep beneath layers of pride and pain. Yet neither of them can say it out loud. The night before John leaves, he rides out to the edge of the ranch, staring into the dark fields. The moonlight reflects off the Yellowstone River, and for a moment it feels like every Dutton before him is watching. He doesn't realize it yet, but this war will shape him into the man who will one day raise Kevin Costner's John Dutton, the man who would defend this land against anyone who dares take it. While John trains for war, back home the ranch begins to fracture. Elizabeth's return has shaken everything. Her son, quiet, proud, and fiercely ambitious, believes the Dutton legacy should be shared. But Spencer doesn't see it that way. To him, Yellowstone is sacred, built with blood, sweat, and sacrifice. He's willing to protect it at any cost, even if it means breaking hearts all over again. Yet there's something about Elizabeth that still disarms him. Her eyes carry the same fire Alexandra once had. The way she looks at him, it's as if she remembers the man he used to be. Not the tired rancher, but the warrior who once crossed oceans for love. The chemistry between them is undeniable, and the air between them burns with tension. But there's guilt, too, a weight neither of them can escape. Rumors begin to spread among the workers on the ranch. They whisper that Spencer has found a new love, a widow, just like the old story said. Some call it destiny, others call it betrayal. But fate doesn't care what people think. It only moves forward. As Elizabeth and her son settle in, Yellowstone becomes a battlefield of emotions. There are arguments over land boundaries, inheritance rights, and family pride. Spencer tries to hold everything together, but his heart is divided. He sees Alexandra in his dreams, sometimes calling his name, sometimes warning him to stay away from Elizabeth. Each night he wakes up drenched in sweat, unsure if the visions are his grief taking form or something much darker trying to tell him the truth. Meanwhile, John Dutton II faces a war of his own far from home. He's drafted into the U.S. Army and sent to Europe, where the reality of battle strips away whatever innocence he had left. The fields of Montana are replaced by muddy trenches, explosions, and the smell of gunpowder. He watches his friends fall one by one, and each loss hardens him. In those moments, he starts to understand the Dutton curse, that everything they love comes with pain. But amid the horror, John finds something else: purpose. He fights not just for his country, but for the land that raised him, for the father who taught him what it means to endure, and for a future he hopes will still be waiting when he returns. Back at Yellowstone, the war changes everything. The ranch faces shortages, the cattle trade collapses, and families begin selling off land just to survive. But Spencer refuses to let go. He's too stubborn, too proud, and too haunted by the past to surrender. He rebuilds fences, leads the workers himself, and even takes on debt to keep Yellowstone alive. His body grows weaker, but his will only grows stronger. And Elizabeth, seeing the burden he carries, begins to stand by him, not as an intruder, but as an ally. Slowly, painfully, love begins to grow between two broken souls who thought they'd never feel again. It's quiet, tragic, and real. The kind of love that can only be born from loss. But every moment of peace feels borrowed, because dark news soon arrives. A letter comes to the ranch, sealed with the military insignia. Spencer opens it with trembling hands, afraid of what he already knows in his gut. The letter says John has gone missing in action. The words hit him like a bullet. He drops to his knees, the sound of his breath echoing through the empty hall. Elizabeth rushes to him, but there's nothing she can say to ease the pain. Yellowstone has seen death before, but this time it feels final. The walls of the ranch seem to close in. The land that once gave the Duttons life now feels cursed, as if every generation must pay a price for keeping it. Still, somewhere deep inside, Spencer refuses to believe his son is gone. He can feel it, that stubborn Dutton spirit that refuses to die. And as the snow begins to fall over Montana, he makes a vow. If the world won't bring his son home, he'll go find him himself. Because that's what Duttons do. They fight, they endure, and they never, ever stop. The third section of Yellowstone 1944 dives into the darkest chapter of the Dutton legacy, the war for survival, both on the battlefield and at home. Weeks pass after Spencer receives the devastating letter about John being missing in action. The world seems to move on, but Spencer can't. Every night, he sits alone on the porch, staring at the mountains, listening to the wind move through the trees. It's as if the land itself is whispering his son's name. The ranch workers avoid him now. They've seen that look before, the hollow stare of a man who's lost too much. But the Duttons are made of something different. They break, but they don't stay broken. And deep down, Spencer knows this story isn't over. In town, Elizabeth tries to keep the ranch from falling apart. The economy is still bleeding from the war effort, and resources are scarce. Every day, she rides out to check the cattle, negotiate feed, and deal with neighbors who are circling like vultures, hoping to buy up parts of the Dutton land while Spencer is distracted. But Elizabeth isn't the same timid girl from 1923. She's a fighter now, and she's not about to let the Yellowstone ranch fall into anyone's hands. Her determination begins to earn her respect, not just from the workers, but from Spencer himself. For the first time in years, he starts to see hope. Fragile, faint, but real. Then something happens that changes everything. One morning, a telegram arrives. It's brief and cold, but the message burns like fire. Private John Dutton II, alive, hospitalized in England, returning home soon. The moment Spencer reads those words, the world comes rushing back into color. The weight of grief lifts, replaced by something else. Resolve. He knows nothing will ever be the same again, but his son's survival means the Dutton line lives on. When John finally steps foot on Montana soil again, he's not the boy who left. His eyes are different. There's a quiet rage behind them, a look that says he's seen things no one should ever have to see. The war didn't just take his innocence. It gave him a darkness that will stay with him forever. But coming home doesn't mean peace. The Yellowstone he returns to feels different, colder, quieter. Spencer's hair is grayer now, his steps slower. Elizabeth, once a familiar face, now feels like a stranger. And then there's her son, who's grown bolder in John's absence. The tension between them is instant. John sees him as an outsider trying to claim what isn't his, while Elizabeth's boy sees John as the privileged heir who got everything handed to him. Spencer tries to mediate, but old wounds quickly reopen. What starts as quiet resentment soon becomes open hostility. The ranch, once united by blood, now stands divided by pride. Meanwhile, Taylor Sheridan uses the war as more than just a backdrop. It becomes a mirror for what's happening inside the Dutton family. Just like the world outside, Yellowstone is in chaos. Everyone's fighting for control, for recognition, for love that seems impossible to keep. Elizabeth's presence is both a blessing and a curse. She keeps the ranch running, yes, but her bond with Spencer begins to draw attention. People talk. They whisper that it's unnatural, a love between two people bound by loss and family ties. Yet the more the world judges, the closer Spencer and Elizabeth grow. In their pain, they find understanding. In their silence, they find peace. But deep down, both of them know that their connection might destroy the family they're trying so hard to save. John, on the other hand, begins to struggle with his place in this new world. The war changed him, but Montana hasn't. The land still demands loyalty and blood. He feels torn between the duty to his family and the trauma he carries from the battlefield. His nights are filled with flashes of explosions, screams, and faces of fallen brothers. He wakes up in sweat, clutching his chest, gasping for air. PTSD wasn't something people talked about in 1944, but John lives it every day. Spencer watches helplessly, knowing that no Dutton ever asks for help. That stubborn pride, that curse, runs too deep in their blood. And then, tragedy strikes again. During a fierce winter storm, the Yellowstone herd scatters across the frozen plains. Spencer and John ride out together to bring them back, a rare moment of unity between father and son. But nature doesn't care about family or legacy. The storm grows worse, winds howling like spirits of the past. They find some of the cattle trapped in a ravine, and Spencer orders John to stay back. But John refuses. Just like his father, he's too proud to back down. The two men argue in the freezing cold, their voices lost in the roar of the wind. And in that chaos, Spencer slips, falling into the icy ravine below. John jumps down to pull him out, screaming his father's name as snow and mud swallow them both. Hours later, Elizabeth finds them. John is alive. Barely. Spencer isn't. He's cold, pale, still. The man who once crossed continents for love has finally fallen on his own land. The entire ranch gathers to mourn. The funeral is simple, quiet. Elizabeth stands beside John, tears frozen on her cheeks. There are no words that can describe the loss of a man like Spencer Dutton, a warrior, a father, a survivor. And yet, even in death, his story isn't over. Because as John looks out over the valley that his father gave everything to protect, he feels something shift inside him. The burden of the Yellowstone name now rests on his shoulders. The pain, the pride, the unbreakable will, all of it becomes his to carry. That night, as the snow settles over the ranch, John swears an oath. He will never let the Dutton name fade. He will protect the land, no matter the cost, even if it means turning into the very kind of man his father once feared he'd become. And in that moment, as the wind howls across the Montana plains, the Dutton legacy is reborn, stronger, darker, and more dangerous than ever before. The fourth chapter of Yellowstone 1944 begins in the quiet aftermath of loss. But on the Dutton Ranch, peace never lasts. Spencer's death leaves behind an emptiness that even time can't fill. The ranch feels heavier, quieter. Every creak of the barn, every gust of wind across the valley seems to carry his memory. John Dutton II buries his father on the same hill where generations of Duttons rest, overlooking the endless fields he once fought to protect. The snow has melted now, and spring creeps in slowly, as if the land itself is trying to heal. But for John, healing isn't an option. His father's shadow follows him everywhere, in the echo of the horse's hooves, in the rustle of the trees, and most painfully, in the weight of the Yellowstone brand on his chest. Elizabeth tries to be his anchor, but her own grief is too raw. She lost two great loves in her lifetime, Jack and now Spencer, and both were Dutton men. Her strength, once unshakable, begins to crack. She hides it behind calm smiles and soft words, but John sees it. He feels it. There's something broken in both of them that love alone can't mend. Yet they cling to each other because there's no one else left who understands what the Yellowstone takes from a person. It's more than a ranch. It's a curse disguised as a legacy. and both of them know it. The war may be over, but the fight for the land is just beginning. With the economy still recovering, outsiders start arriving in Montana. Businessmen, land developers, and opportunists looking to stake a claim in what they call unused land. They have no idea what they're walking into. Yellowstone doesn't welcome strangers. John, hardened by war and loss, becomes fiercely protective of the ranch. He starts enforcing boundaries with the same intensity he once used on the battlefield. To him, every fence post, every blade of grass carries his father's name, and he'll die before letting anyone take it.